Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're diving into the 2024 American election,
Yeah. Hmm.
but not just like who won and all that.
Right, yeah.
We're going deeper. Like, how did the results change how people view the whole election system?
Okay.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, did it make things more stable, or is that just wishful thinking?
That's a good question. It's really interesting
Yeah.
how these narratives, around fraud and the system being rigged, they kind of vanish when your guy wins.
Oh, totally.
Which makes you wonder what fairness even means, in a democracy.
Yeah, that's deep. Okay, so let's get into it. Our main source of this deep dive
Well,
really digs into Trump's big win in 24. They're saying it's almost like
yeah.
his win like single-handedly proved the system works.
Interesting.
Yes, at least for conservatives. Is that too simple, though?
Well, the source points out that all that anxiety around fraud,
Oh, yeah. Back in 2020.
remember that, it pretty much disappeared
Yeah,
after this
Okay.
election. And the transfer of power this time, totally peaceful.
that's right. Totally different from the chaos after 2020.
Big contrast.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like people on the right saw their guy win and thought, okay, maybe it does work like it should.
Yeah, like it's almost like the system was only rigged until they were the ones on top.
Wow.
There's this quote in the source from a conservative commentator,
Oh, yeah.
something like, for years they told us the system was rigged against us. Turns out it was only rigged until we were the ones on top.
That's a good quote. It really captures that feeling.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. But then the source kind of flips the script
Uh-huh.
and asks, what if Trump hadn't won?
Whoa. What if...
What if the outcome was different?
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
They say a Trump loss might have reignited those rigged system claims, like even worse than before.
Oh, wow. So basically,
Yeah.
the system's only legit if your side wins.
It's like the legitimacy hinges on which side comes out on top.
That's kind of bleak.
Yeah, it really
Yes.
highlights the polarization.
In American politics.
Yeah. It's like people's idea of fairness
Hmm?
is totally subjective.
Based on whether their candidate won.
Yeah, like it's all about who wins or loses.
No. Hold on.
Yeah.
What's up? The source isn't saying that there's NO election fraud.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
They're not denying it completely.
They do acknowledge it. You're right.
Okay, so what are they saying then?
They're saying some level of fraud probably always happens.
Okay.
They emphasize that the scale of it is statistically insignificant, especially when you look at the research on
Bullshit.
how rarely voter fraud actually changes the outcome.
So they're saying keep things in perspective.
Right.
Like acknowledge it exists, but don't freak out.
Yeah, don't blow it out of proportion. Like it's this massive problem that invalidates everything.
Right. It's not the whole story.
Exactly. And this leads us to another interesting point
Oh,
from the 2024 election.
okay. Here I am.
Kamala Harris's concession.
Oh, right. Completely different from 2020. What do you think? How did that play into this?
Whole perception of fairness.
Good question. The source highlights how she conceded quickly and gracefully.
Yeah?
Maybe that helped create a more peaceful atmosphere after the election.
It's possible.
Right. I mean, remember, she lost big.
One of the worst defeats.
Yeah. For Democrats in recent history.
And she conceded so readily.
It's pretty striking.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder.
Yeah. Does it signal a shift?
Could this be a turning point
Sure.
toward a less volatile political climate?
At least for now, maybe.
It really makes you think. Are we headed toward a less combative political landscape?
Who knows?
It's only time will tell.
Yeah. True.
Speaking of surprising turns, though,
Yeah.
there's another thing the source brings up.
Okay. What is it?
I think you'll find it interesting. Joe Rogan.
Wait, Joe Rogan.
Yeah. That barman
Yeah.
has always been so critical of
And
the
they go-
establishment.
Exactly. That's what makes it so fascinating.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
The source points out that even Rogan, a known critic,
All right.
acknowledged that the system worked.
After this election.
Wow.
Pretty unexpected. Especially considering, his anti-woke views and his distrust of mainstream institutions.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
But that's what makes his reaction so interesting.
Yeah. It could be a bridge
Okay. I see where you're going with this.
across the political divide.
So, we have Trump's win, seemingly calming fears on the right,
Right.
Harris conceding gracefully,
Uh-huh.
and even Joe Rogan admitting the system worked.
It's a weird mix.
It really is. It's like,
Almost like a perfect storm.
yeah, of events and reactions.
The big question remains,
What's that?
can this sense of stability last?
Right, or are we just setting ourselves up for another round of distrust and accusations the next time things don't go someone's way?
It's something to think about.
It really is. We need to figure that out.
Absolutely. And before we get ahead of ourselves,
Oh, yes.
there's another key point from the source that we need to address.
Right.
One that might offer some insight into building a more stable future.
Okay.
So towards the end, the source makes this really powerful. Call for unity and trust in the system.
Oh. Okay.
Like, it's not about ignoring the problems, but working together to make things better.
Right. We're all in this together, no matter what our political beliefs are.
Exactly. They actually use the phrase, a path forward for unity.
That's good. It's catchy.
It ties back to that idea that both sides need to accept the outcome, whether they win or lose.
Yeah, that's tough to swallow sometimes.
Especially these days, with how divided everyone is.
Totally.
But the source argues that it's essential for a healthy democracy.
Okay, I see that. Makes sense.
And they make this point about how focusing on small instances of fraud
Yeah, even if they exist.
distracts us from the bigger picture.
It's like obsessing over a scratch on your car when the engine's about to blow.
That's a great analogy. Right.
Right.
It brings us back to the listener, though. What can they take away from all this?
What's the big takeaway? I think it's that.
Yeah.
This election in 2024, especially with Trump's win and Harris conceding,
Yeah.
it could be a sign of things becoming more peaceful politically.
Interesting. Yeah.
Maybe we're moving away from all those
Yes, I agree.
accusations and distrust that have plagued recent elections.
Yeah, it's possible. It's still early, but
Yeah,
there's a glimmer of hope that we're turning a corner.
I like that. A glimmer of hope.
Moving forward, accepting the results, working together to strengthen our democracy.
That's powerful stuff. We need to hear that right now.
Definitely. It's important.
But it also brings up some big questions, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like,
Can this last? This feeling of stability.
right. Will we fall back into the same patterns
Mm.
of division and distrust?
How do we even begin to fix those underlying issues that cause all these fights over the election process?
Huge question.
These go way beyond this one election.
It's about the future of American democracy.
And as the source says, finding the answers will take all of us.
We got to talk to each other, really listen to different viewpoints, and work together to build a system that reflects what we all believe in.
It's a lot to ask, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. It's crucial.
The future of our democracy might depend on it. No pressure, right?
Well said. And you know what? I'm feeling cautiously optimistic.
Me too. Maybe this is the start of a more mature democracy.
One that's more resilient, where we can disagree, but still be respectful, accept the election results, and focus on building a better future together.
I love that. That's a great way to think about it.
It's a good note to end on. But before we wrap up completely,
Okay, what's next?
let's give our listener something to think about.
Okay, I like that.
Something that builds on our discussion today, but takes it a step further.
Okay, hit me.
So here's a question for you, dear listener. If the stability is real, how do we make it last?
Ooh, good question. Beyond this one election.
How do we make it a permanent change in our political culture?
Because let's face it, there's going to be another election.
And another,
And every time.
the stakes get higher and higher.
So how do we escape this cycle of distrust and division? How do we create a democracy that's strong enough to handle anything? That's the challenge in front of us.
Yeah.
And we've got to face it head on together.
And on that note,
So we've asked this huge question. How do we make this stability last? But I feel like
right.
the source actually gives us a hint.
Oh, yeah. You think so?
Yeah, remember when we were talking about Joe Rogan's take on the election?
Oh, yeah. Right.
The whole even a critic admitted it worked thing?
I remember. That was surprising.
Totally caught me off guard.
Well, the source suggests this could be a bigger trend,
Okay, interesting.
like a shift in how figures like Rogan, people who are skeptical of institutions,
Yeah.
how they view those systems.
Okay, keep
But
following.
how does that connect to
Love it.
the stability of our election?
Right, that's the big question.
Think about it. Rogan's got a huge audience,
Yeah.
and a lot of them share that distrust of the powers that be.
Yeah, for sure.
So if someone like him starts saying the system's legit, even when his guy loses,
Could it change things?
it might. People might be more open to trusting the process, even if they don't get what they want.
Like a ripple effect?
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay. Lay it on me.
Rogan's whole anti-woke thing, his anti-establishment stance, it comes from distrusting those systems.
I see what you mean.
So him accepting the outcome could mean that distrust is fading.
That would be huge.
Right. And if that's true, it could change American politics.
Okay. I like where you're going with this.
Imagine people debating in good faith, even when they disagree strongly.
A world where losing an election doesn't mean conspiracy theories and accusations of fraud.
Wouldn't that be something?
Love to see that.
It's a hopeful vision, but not impossible.
That's what I find so exciting about this whole deep dive.
Me too. We started with the 2024 election, but ended up talking about the very foundation of our democracy.
It's a big topic. We've covered so much ground. And even though there aren't easy answers, I think this conversation was a great place to start.
I agree. It's all about asking the right questions, exploring different perspectives, and staying involved.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's what the depth dive is all about. So to our listener, keep diving, keep questioning, keep the conversation going.
Because the more we understand about our world, the better we can shape its future.
Well said.
That's all for this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep those brain gears turning.